Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Habaita. Today, I am so excited to be joined by Amir Sarras, who is the founder at Fugu, which is such a unique company combating, I think, one of the biggest issues that we have, which is credit card fraud. And so, Amir, welcome to Habaita.
Happy to be here. Happy you're having me.
Good. So tell me a little bit about fraud. Like, where did this come from that you're like, I need to combat this?
Listen, fraud comes from actually starting from an abuse of a technical system. Right? Credit
Okay.
cards were used to go through terminals, right? They were built to go through terminals.
Right.
And at some point we realized that the terminal are obsolete because e-commerce is going to be, the ones that are going to prevail. And I said, what are we going to do? Oh, we're going to let them type the number, right? We're going to let them type the
Right.
number. And that created a whole loophole in the regulation, right? Because we had a proof that the card was present. We had a proof that the
Right.
card was present because we swiped it in the terminal, right? Back then. But then when we typed it, we had no proof. And everybody who could memorize my number, someone else's
Right.
number or overlook it from behind in a cafe could use it, not to mention stealing it in the dark web and things like that. And the
For
whole
sure.
concept of card not present is there. And since card not present, right, I would say the credit card companies had to provide a system to dispute because they knew that people were going to steal the details. So if someone is using my card, I need to dispute. So what happened, we created a dispute system. And then the actual cardholder started abusing the dispute system, claiming that they didn't buy what they bought, etc. So one thing that was esoteric, because we were using a technology that was not meant for to use online, right? And we created a patch over it. And we were able to deal with fraud, but then we created the new types of fraud. And the whole thing right now, totally depending on the identity of the, I would say, payer right now, is no longer valid, right? Because now I could be the payer myself. I could imitate that I'm the payer, right? Stealing a credit card, issuing a valid debit card, coming to the website with a valid debit card. So I'm the payer as far as they're concerned, but I'm a fraudster as well. So in the AI era, it's easier to commit fraud. It's easier to commit fraud with your own identity. That undermines the basic assumptions, right? Undermines the basic assumptions of what fraud is, right? I'm not an imposter anymore. I'm just an abuser. So the whole
Mhm.
ecosystems need to be changed and monitored, and we need to, in general, work 3, 4, 5 times harder to identify fraud. Otherwise, we're going to lose a lot of business. Actually, the problem of fraud is not actually a problem of fraud. It's the problem of losing valid business because we are afraid of fraud. So maintaining the right balance is the name of the game.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I can just share personally. I've noticed that like I have very good security, especially on the business credit cards. Like any transaction, typically that's over a certain amount, I have to personally verify, which I like and I appreciate. But my husband had to change his credit card 4 times in a row because something on Facebook Marketplace, which he's not even on Facebook, so the whole thing was so weird, kept charging small charges, small charges. And thank God he noticed because I think that's kind of the scam that they do is they start with very small little charges, but like frequently, and then they give you a big, a big bill. So very interesting. But the credit card company was also really, really good about it. But it was hours and hours and hours of dealing with it. So I can really understand the pain of, as the merchant to go through the process of dealing with the chargebacks and fighting it and dealing with the fraud, right? And so that's why I'm assuming that you created your technology. So maybe just share a little bit about how, because obviously there are already credit cards, like you said, the credit cards themselves have certain systems in place. But how does your system then, I guess be added onto that and create additional security?
So it all starts with the last comment I gave on the last answer, right? Which is the basic assumption of what fraud is has been changing drastically, right?
Right.
And it's keep on evolving. We'll talk about how it evolves, but the basic assumption is that in the past we were looking for imposters. So we realized that we have to realize verify your identity, right? Now it's not only your identity, we have to verify your behavior. Right? In that sense,
Mm.
we have to monitor much more than getting your data, your, I would say, identity information. I think there are
Mhm.
three macro trends that are affecting the way we verify transactions and makes the current solution, obviously the ones by the credit cards, but also from our competitors, a bit less efficient or less efficient. We're first in order to be competitive in the I would say e-commerce landscape right now, it's all the name of the game is frictionless checkout. That means that we do not ask questions. We let you check out as soon as possible. The moment we can take the money, we let you take the money. And the moment we start asking questions, we're going to lose you, right? We're going to lose you for the competition. We're going to lose you for another alternative. We're going to lose you for something. We're going to lose your intent even sometimes, right? It's not that important, right? In that sense, that limit our ability to validate, right, and verify transactions and customers before the checkout. For that, we need to add some post-checkout capabilities. That way, we could optimize first for conversion, knowing that we'll be able to mitigate fraud after. That's one micro thing. It's the checkout, I would say, frictionless checkout. And I will give another futuristic example, right? It started with the card present, right? Then we had to go with card not present. And I think 2 years from now, 2 or 3 years from now, we are not that far away from that with agentic commerce, right? When you do your AI agent is doing the commerce for you, right? Even the customer will not be present in the checkout, right? The last thing you want to know is, hey, wait, I want you to come to the checkout. That's not going to happen. You're going to lose the business. So what you're going to do is you will need to develop some asynchronous post-payment capabilities like Fugu provides. In that sense that you'll be able to verify the customer, verify the intent, and meet the customer somewhere up after the checkout or maybe before the checkout to verify that. That's one thing. It's the frictionless checkout requires you to being able to monitor and analyze the transactions post-payment, right? That's one thing. Second thing is that we're dealing with new types of fraud, as we discussed. It's no longer the imposters, it's also the friendly fraudsters, the cardholders themselves. For that, to verify their intent, because you cannot, you cannot rule out all the cardholders, right? So you're not going to do the business. So in that sense, you'll have to monitor the payment throughout a longer period of time. And that means again, the post-checkout, because sometimes the customer will talk with support online and will be dissatisfied, which is a moment before he's going to do a chargeback. He's going to change his contact details. All those things that you need to be aware of them, right? In that sense, we also know that frauds come in clusters. When they come in cluster, I might have missed one fraud transaction, second, third, fourth, but then I realized that there is a cluster. You have to be able to go back and mark the first, second, third, and fourth transactions after that, and not just forget about them. That's efficient fraud management, depending on behavior, etc. Because everything looks innocent on the first, second, third. Only, the behavior post-payment with related payments reveals the true face of that intention of those things. So you need to be able to go there. So this is another kind of things, showing us the way towards further monitoring of the payments and rather than just analyzing, the checkout information. The last thing I think is also that the payment itself has changed, right? The payment itself has changed from a simple handshake at the checkout 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago. We would exchange details, bye-bye. We might have a chargeback, no, yes or no. But now we're dealing with buy now, pay later kind of solutions. We're doing a lot of installments types of things. The last thing you want is to miss something happen, right? Post-payment. So you need to keep on monitoring. And if you want to be efficient, right, affecting your next decision, but sometimes when you have a recurring value delivery, right, you send something every month, right, things like that. You need to keep on understanding what happened in between, right, the payments, not only the payment themselves. So I would say all those 3 micro trends, it's like frictionless checkout, customer not present even, etc. New types of fraud and the kind of I would say the expansion of payment time, right? All of those requiring tools that are able to monitor this entire, I would say, process or relationship happening.
That's amazing. So maybe you can just explain a little bit about how does it work post-transaction? Does the customer go through a verification process? Like I understand a frictionless, purchasing, you need to get them to buy when they're ready to buy. There's a lot of buy now buttons, right, that just take you straight through to the checkout. And there's a lot of, incentivizing around that as well, like rewarding for you to just buy now. So I understand that it's very important because like you said, you're going to lose them to the competition. They're going to go elsewhere. But how do you go through that verification post-transaction?
So One thing is important to say, as I said, is that we're not verifying the customer. We are verifying the transaction. And there are a lot of signals that are completely passive post-transaction, right? That do
Not that the
not
customer
require
Okay, got
that do
it.
not require actual touch points. Yes, we could challenge the customer, and it's better to challenge the customer after he paid and not before he paid, right? Will customers will eventually cooperate, right? Because it's the easier way for them to conclude the transactions. They already want it, and not will customers will not do that. But that's not the only tool in your arsenal, right? For that, the customer is receiving email from you, right? The customer is interacting with support. The customer is doing other payments, right? The customer is browsing to the order status page in cases, right? And we see that with airlines, with local, global retailers, etc. Sometimes you get something very weird, someone is ordering a flight from the US to Israel, let's say, right, from Barbados. From
Yeah,
during the
yeah,
wartime, we had it's not even it
right.
was
There's
a
no
flight from the
flights.
US to Athens, not even to Israel,
Right,
right?
right, right, right.
In those kind of things. And then when
Yeah,
they open the email, right? When they open the email from the same country or from the last country of them, or they have related orders in the past and all those kind of things, tell you a much bigger story that allows you to treat what seems to be the most suspicious, payment, makes you realize that there might be a good story behind that, right? And there's many other things. So, how many different credit cards did I use in the history? Does it make sense that I've done 10 orders in the last hour, right? From the
yeah,
same browser and all those
yeah.
kind of things. So
So the
it
your
evolves as we talk, as we speak, right?
yeah, that's really cool. So what has been one of the worst fraudulent stories that you've been involved with or heard about happening with the credit
Actually,
card processing?
there's a lot of them. Every now and then we get an attack, and I think our kind of success stories are about being able to approve more than others, right? Being able to approve what seems to be what others are not doing. For example, there is the city in the US which is called Doral. It's not that far from Miami. It's not that far from. This is the capital of fraud, right? Why? Because it's full
What's
of capital of fraud, right? It's
what's
like the fraud
what's the name?
capital of the
What's the
world.
name of the city?
Doral, Doral, right?
Okay.
Doral. What's happening there? It's full for carriers who ship things abroad, mostly to Latin America. What do they
Okay.
offer? They offer a virtual PO box. So they give you an address. You could send things there, right? But they do not expose who bought that, who's licensed that PO box. Huh? This is a private thing. You just send to them. So what you could do as a fraudsters, you don't, whenever you give an address, right? It's a touch point that people could know where you got it from, right? So they are giving those places, right? They are giving those virtual PO boxes. All usually if you go on Shopify, they will tell you do not ship there. You will use account, which is another competitor, will say do not ship there. Indeed, there is a big concern shipping there because there's high risk of fraud, I'm telling you. But we've learned that when the email, right, is opened from Latin America, right, when we send the email in Latin America, or the IP is from Latin America and not from US, this is a genuine mother or father or something who wants to either bypass the fact that a certain merchant do not ship to Latin America, they only ship in the US. So they ship it to there, and from there, they're shipping it independently to their home country. That's one thing. Second thing, they're consolidating several shipments, reducing the cost of shipment of the international shipment. So we've learned that if the email is open from Latin America, we are okay to send it. That's how we approve 50% of the transactions there, right?
Wow, that's so interesting. Okay, that's really fascinating. So all these different patterns and behaviors you guys are monitoring. So how does it work then? Let's say Shopify e-commerce owner wants to integrate your technology. How do they do that?
It's simple as that. We have an app. They install the
On
free app.
Shopify?
On Shopify, right? They
Okay,
install it, and
amazing.
then they contact us and they'll say, hey, I'm interested in upgrading. We're into contact with them. It's pretty, it's a matter of minutes and
Yeah.
you're halfway protected, and it's another day and you're fully.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so what do the merchants actually pay in addition to the credit card processing fee? Is that your business model that it's a percentage of the
Yeah, we do have
transaction?
we have two business, a combination of two business models. You could only get the scoring and use our smart advice, but we could also give you a performance guarantee. That means that if it's fraud and we approved it, we pay you the money back. We are
Oh,
backed by
wow.
the largest world reinsurer on that. That's how we are very
That's amazing.
confident in our technology. And that's the way it
Okay.
goes. If we're wrong, we're paying you money back. Usually the ROI of using our system is in the 10 times, 1,000, the minimum we get is 500%, which is 5 times more than what you pay, right?
So the value
And
for the
not to
merchant.
mention the value of accepting more customers. That's the name of the game today. It's zero
Yeah,
fraud. If someone asking, hey, I don't have fraud, it doesn't mean that you don't have a problem, right? You have zero
right.
fraud. I would say that if you're in certain industries, it's most probable that you have a problem because you're giving away too much business, right? You're
Yeah.
declining.
So that's super interesting because what you're able to do then is you're able to say to these merchants that we will actually enable more percentages, like a higher percentage that we will actually push through as a yes transaction, right? And only stop the ones that we know are really fraud.
Exactly. And
Okay.
we have a customer on Shopify, which is on a high risk, is selling some kind of a smoke shop. It's one of the riskiest businesses there.
Yeah.
Not only because it's this type of people who are using it. It's not just that. To be honest, but there's specifically kind of a lot of, I would say, lower teenagers getting there, and this
Under,
kind of thing. And there's a lot of friendly fraud because when their parents see the credit card charge, they
right? They're like,
cancel
what
it
did
and
you
all those kind
buy?
of
Yeah.
things.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very complicated on that. They
Yeah.
were hit by fraud when they asked us to, they came to us. They were hit by fraud. They were actually under the Visa monitoring, and they were forced by the bank to use one of the very known risk tools. That declined around 25% of the traffic of the people will pay it, right? Imagine you're a store owner in the mall, Visa Zara store.
Yeah.
25% of people who are standing in line to pay do not pay eventually because you think that this is something you will
Don't,
do.
don't
So
accept
they
their
would,
payment.
yeah. So this was a big problem for them. They brought us working on top of that solution. We've approved 90% of those declines. So we've approved 22.5 of those 25, right? Things, and we let 50% less fraud. Why? Because we were dealing with those youngsters. We identified the behavior of the youngsters while them, they were looking for imposters, right? It's not a
Wow.
problem of imposters, right?
Right. So interesting. Wow. So are you working with, I was going to ask you, the tobacco industry, the alcohol industry, these industries, cannabis, these industries that are a little bit harder for proper approvals. Are those industries that you tackle as well?
We are tackling anything, right? You have a horizontal project that could be customized per customer. So we have, yes, this is the best, I would say, school for fraud, right? Those high risk ones. And
Yeah.
we've got some very loyal customers in that things. But we do have airlines, some of the biggest airlines in Israel. We do have fashion retailers like Ed Hardy, JD Sports, all those kind of things. One of the biggest OTAs, online travel agencies in Israel as well. We are in advanced negotiations with some of the largest airlines in the world, right? In that sense, and we are like to partners with the payment providers. So we have like more than like 5 payment providers around the globe that are reselling our risk analysis, right? They
Yeah,
have
that's
those things,
amazing.
and we've been, we had a POC. We're expecting 2027 a big project with a payment provider, the biggest payment provider out of Spain, in where we were directly competing on a POC with the largest, I would say, firms, and being a startup, right? Fighting against Mastercard, fighting against Visa, fighting against Count, SIFT, all those big guys, being able to beat them. It's not because we are smarter. It's not because we have a more mature technology. That's of course not true. It's because we look where no one else looks, right? And that's what makes the difference. And we work harder. We work harder. Everybody is getting the payment. I'll tell you what I think. We're getting the payment. I'll tell you what I think, but I'm continuing thinking about it all the time, right? Till I get another information. And that's how we are able to update kind of the final decision in a more accurate manner.
Do you feel like being an Israeli company has helped you or hurt you?
I tend not to go there. I tend not to go there. I think it's not a discussion. It's either you provide value or not. I could give you examples of where it hurted us. I could tell you examples where it opened the doors, right, for us as well. Israeli technology has a very good, name out there in the world. So I usually don't go there. It's like, we're not giving technology, right? We're not selling technology. We're selling ROI, return on investment. As long as
Yeah.
the ROI is positive, it doesn't matter whether it's Israeli, Palestinian, or Christian. I don't know, right? It doesn't really matter. It's no.
Interesting. No, I know that we think that, but I do personally also run into a lot where they're like, you're in Israel, we're not going to work with you. So I was just curious. And then the other opposite, where you're in Israel, we want to work with you.
I don't even go there. It might be the case in some cases, but I could
Yeah.
tell you so many other cases that it
Yeah.
made it easier the penetration. So on average, I
Yeah.
believe that's the
It adds out. Okay, that's good. It makes me happy to hear that it's not like, oh, it's so difficult and hard and
and I
you
think and if we take it to a more philosophical kind of manner, I think I would strongly advise to entrepreneurs don't use that excuse. Don't use that excuse. Huh? It's at the end of the day, this is what we right. This is what we do. Then this is the tools we have for good and for bad. So you better find a way
to make it
do
work for
that.
you.
Yeah,
And like you said, we work really hard here. That's for sure.
yeah.
We're accustomed to working very hard, very long hours. There's no such thing as time off, right?
Mhm.
And we're constantly working and getting better and better. So Amir, thank you so much. It was so wonderful to speak to you today, and I really enjoyed this discussion. I'm going to post obviously on our podcast. If there's anyone that is interested in partnering with you or learning more about your technology, they can contact you directly. And thank you. It was so great.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the conversation and great job.
Thank you so much.